I learned very quickly, Leo, Al had a problem. He had over $1 million in his checking account, and he didn't know what to do with it, where to put it. He didn't want to put it in the local bank and make that kind of little bit of interest. And so I walked him through my little PowerPoint presentation, the same one I did at the private lender luncheon. Al became my next $650,000 private lender by me simply giving him an audio recording of where I met him. And notice I didn't follow up with him. He's chasing me after he listened to this little 16-minute introductory. You see, that audio does not spill the beans. It doesn't tell the interest rate or the length of the note, but it piques curiosity. And the purpose of that 16-minute audio is to get a potential private lender's greed glands in their neck swelling up so they can't wait to hear the details of the program and the opportunity.
If you're a real estate investor and are wondering how to raise and leverage private money to make more profit on every deal, then you're in the right place. On Raising Private Money, we'll speak with new and seasoned investors to dissect their deals and extract the best tips and strategies to help you get the money, because the money comes first. Now here's your host, Jay Conner.
Jay, thank you so much for joining me on my podcast today. I like to showcase and tell people stories, and what you do and some of the folks that follow you overlap quite well with our community. And investing in real estate has been a very important part of my journey. So when I found the opportunity to have you on, I was excited. So thank you for being here. And if you could just take us from the top of whatever part of the origin story that what took you to the business that you're in today would be a great place to kick it off.
Sure, Leo. Well, first of all, thank you so much for inviting me to come along and talk about what I'm so excited and passionate about, that being private money, because private money in my real estate investing business has had more of an impact than any other strategy or anything else that I've done. So how in the world did this come about? Carol Joy, my wife, and I, we started investing in primarily single-family houses. Now, I've done shopping centers and condominiums, but the focus since 2003 has been single-family houses here in eastern North Carolina in a very, very small area. Our total target market is only 40,000 people, and our average profits for the past 12 months have been $86,000 per transaction. And I don't share that, Leo, to brag at all. I share that to make a point. And the point is, there's an argument to be made to be a big fish in a small pond. So I don't have that many competitors here in our small area. And we do all kinds of marketing to find off-market houses and etc. So anyway, from 2003, when we started, until January of 2009, our very first 6 years, all I knew to do, Leo, to get my deals funded was go to the local bank or the mortgage company and get on my hands and knees and say, please fund my deal. And the banker would make me pull up my skirt and show my personal assets and have my credit score pulled and all that stuff. So it was traditional financing. You know what's funny, Leo? Back then, I didn't even know what hard money was. Never heard of it. That's because I live underneath a rock here in eastern North Carolina. Nonetheless, in January of 2009, Leo, everything changed. I called up my banker. His name was Steve. He had been my banker for 6 years. We'd done a lot of deals together. And I called up Steve in January 2009, and I told him about these two houses that I had under contract to purchase. And I thought I still had a line of credit at the bank. Nobody had told me otherwise. And so in the middle of that conversation, Leo, Steve informs me that my line of credit has been closed with no notice to me. And I said, Steve, what in the world are you talking about? Closing my line of credit. We got a great 6-year relationship. Always made my payments on time. I've got an 800 credit score. Why is the bank shutting down my line of credit? Steve said, Jay, don't you know there's a global financial crisis going on right now? I said, no, but you just gave me a financial crisis. I don't have a way to fund these two deals, which had a potential profit of over $100,000 just on these two deals. And so Steve proceeded to tell me, sorry, we're not loaning money out to real estate investors or any other real estate investors. So I hung up the phone, Leo. I sat here at this desk for a moment and I thought to myself, what am I going to do? Well, I have choices. I learned from Jack Canfield the formula as to how to be in control of your destiny, which is E plus R equals O. That's the event that happens in your life. You're 100% responsible for how you want to respond to that event and therefore be a part of your own outcome that you experience. So I sat here and I asked myself a question. And you know, the power is in asking the right questions. I want to share with you, Leo, and your audience, this powerful question that I asked myself, because the answer to this question pivoted my entire real estate investing journey. And the question I asked myself was, and by the way, this question will help solve any problem anybody has. And you know, these people running around saying, oh, every problem's an opportunity. I want to throw up. I want to be the Kool-Aid guy that runs into the brick wall on TV. I didn't have an opportunity. I had a problem. Let's face the facts. Now, this opportunity or this problem became an opportunity, but at the moment it's a problem. So here's the question I asked myself. I said, Jay, who do you know? It's not how, it's who. Who do you know that can help fix your problem? And that question will help fix any problem. Health, finances, career, relationships, it doesn't matter. And you know what's interesting, Leo? When I asked myself that question, I immediately thought of a dear friend of ours, Jeff Blankenship. He lived in Greensboro, North Carolina at the time, and he was investing in single-family houses. So I said, hey, I bet Jeff can help me. I called up Jeff and I told him what had just happened with me and my banker over the telephone. And Jeff said, well, welcome to the club, Jay. I said, well, what club is that? I'm not sure I want to be a member. He said, well, my bank just shut me down last week. I said, well, Jeff, how are you going to fund your single family house deals? He said, well, have you ever heard of private money? I said, no, what's that? He said, well, have you ever heard of self-directed IRAs and how individuals can move retirement funds over to a self-directed IRA company, and the interest that us real estate investors pay them is either tax-free or tax-deferred? I said, Jeff, I don't have a clue what in the world you're talking about. What's private money? He said, well, there's this gentleman down in Jacksonville, Florida, by the name of Ron LeGrand. And Jeff says, Ron LeGrand can teach us about private money. I said, well, what is it? Jeff said, I don't know, but Ron says we can get a whole lot of it very, very quickly. I said, great. So, Leo, that was my very first real estate investing seminar that I went to in February 2009. I have been doing this business for 6 years, just leveraging my experience off of being in the mobile home and manufactured housing business after that industry went to pot. And so I went to Ron LeGrand's seminar. I learned about private money. And I only had $1 million line of credit, which is nothing, at the local bank. I was able to attract over $2 million in less than 90 days of new funding from private lenders, individuals. And you know what's interesting, Leo? I got 47 private lenders investing in our deals, loaning us money, and not one of those private lenders ever heard of private money until I put on my teacher hat, my private money teacher hat. None of them ever heard of private money, private lending. None of them ever heard of self-directed IRAs. Over half of those 47 people are using their retirement funds to fund our deals and loan us money. And since that time, I've never asked anybody for money, and I've never pitched a deal in my life since 2009. And it's all because of leading with a servant's heart, teaching the program, the big secret sauce, and then I'll turn it back to you, Leo, because I could talk about this all day. The big secret sauce is separating conversations between teaching the opportunity to be a private lender and teaching what I offer versus having a deal for them to fund. I get my deals funded without ever pitching their deal by calling them up with a script that I call the good news phone call. I'll share that with you and your audience if you want me to. And, you know, here's a writer downer. Desperation's got a smell to it. And the worst time in the world to be looking for private money is when you need it for a deal. That's the worst time in the world to be looking for private money. And, you know, I tell people, it's a mistake to be looking for private money after you got a deal under contract. Leo, I'm getting ready to take a little risk. Here. I mean, you run a huge organization, so odds are you've probably heard this phrase. I'm going to share the phrase, and then I'll tell you what I think about it. Have you ever heard the guru or the speaker on the platform or the stage say, "Oh, just get the deal under contract. The money will show up"? You ever heard that hogwash baloney? Or they'll say, "Oh, money finds good deals." I mean, has money got legs and running around? I mean, that's the most stupid thing I ever heard in my life. It seems to me, get the money lined up first. Establish a relationship with a hard money lender such as yourself, or raise money from private lenders. Get the money ready to go. And just think how much more confident real estate investors and entrepreneurs are going to be to make offers when they've got the money lined up, burning a hole in their pocket, ready to do deals. So people ask me all the time, Leo, how do I start raising private money? I can tell you how to start. You start by owning the real estate between your ears. Get your mindset right. No chasing, no begging, no selling, no persuading, serving, exposing people to what this world of private money is all about. And then you create win-win scenarios with those private lenders that you've taught, and everybody wins.
And so I completely resonate with the story. I also saw a Ron LeGrand seminar in the early financial crisis. My story, I started investing in flipping houses. I also had a line of credit with BB&T that was shut down from one day to the next.
That's where my line of credit was.
So we had the same banker. And by the way, I was actually flipping houses in the Carolinas in Wilmington. So
well, that's only an hour, 45 minutes from where I live.
Yep. There was a small airport that had just done eminent domain, and I was able to acquire 10 single-family homes, and I moved them on a truck. So I've had some crazy real estate stories, and I was using BB&T, and they informed me from one day to the next I no longer had a credit facility.
Well, hey, look, you're blessed, Leo. They informed you.
Well, I was drawing on it when they informed me. So
okay. Same scenario.
Yeah. So, and then I went on to start a private lending business. And for me, it was a little different. I had gotten some folks who had trusted me with their money, but then I stopped using it because the prices kept going down, and I was like, I'm just gonna wait this market out. And they told me they didn't want it back. They were very accustomed to the rate. And that's what kind of put me on the path to become a lender. But walk me through that initial conversation. What's the structure? Like, what are the tactical things people can do that are listening?
So you mean as far as how to go about raising private?
Yeah. So give us the step one in your process.
Right. Well, step one is your mindset. You're not chasing and begging. You're serving and leading, right? You're teaching people that don't know about this. That's step number one. Step number two, what are you going to teach? What are you going to offer? So the next step is you got to know what you are offering. What's the opportunity you're offering? And one big mindset shift for me, Leo, is that when I'm teaching private lenders that have never heard of this world before, then we as the borrower, this is very different from institutional money. We as the borrower, we are our own underwriter. We set the interest rate, we set the length of the note, we set the maximum value to after repaired value, which is 180 degrees from traditional institutional lending, because 99.9% of the time, it's the lender, he or she who has the cash, that makes the rules. So here's another big mindset shift. We're offering an opportunity, and here's the interest rate that we're offering, et cetera. For example, since 2009, when I started, I've been paying all my private lenders 8%, no points, a maximum of 75% of the after repaired value, loan to value. Length of the note is typically 2 years. However, most of the time we don't use it that long. And so what's the next thing you do? What is the opportunity that you are teaching, right? And with your permission, Leo, at the end of this show, I'll actually give my book for free to your audience where to get the money now and ship it to them. And in the book, I go over the entire program that I taught and I still teach my new potential private lenders. So what are you going to teach? Know what it is that you're offering. And then the next step is make your list from your own contacts, your own network. Who do you go to church with? Who do you see regularly on a weekly basis that the trust factor is already in place? And so I'll share a short story that explains these steps. I was thinking of a gentleman named Wayne that Carol Joy and I went to church with. He's passed away now, unfortunately. But it was a Wednesday night, Leo, at Bible study here at the Morehead City Church of Christ in Morehead City, North Carolina, on Barber Road. Well, Carol Joy and I, we've been a member of that church for a long time. I walked into the foyer. Now, bear in mind, I had just gotten cut off from the bank, but I had put my program together as to what I wanted to offer an opportunity to potential private lenders that never knew anything about this world. I walked into the foyer and I looked at Wayne. I saw Wayne there. I walked up to him and I said, Wayne, I'd like to visit with you confidentially for a few minutes after Bible study if you got a few minutes. He said, well, sure, Brother Jay. So we had Bible study and we got together in the nursery right after Bible study on that Wednesday night. Leo, here's exactly what I said to Wayne. Remember, I'm not begging, chasing, persuading, selling, and I'm not asking anybody for money. Here's exactly what I said to Wayne. I said, Wayne, you know everybody in this town. And he did. He was the Zenith television dealer way back when in Morehead City, North Carolina. Now, if you're listening to this show and you don't know who the Zenith television dealer was, that means you're too young to remember life before Walmart came to town. You actually bought your TVs from the Zenith dealer. He would finance your TV. He'd come to your house and repair your TV. Well, Wayne had put a TV in practically everybody's house in Morehead City. And I said, Wayne, you know everybody in this town. He was well connected with the Rotary Club. I said, and here's the magic phrase. Here's the magic phrase. I said, Wayne, I need your help. I said, I've now opened up my real estate investing business by referral only. And when you run across somebody that's complaining about the volatility of the stock market or making hardly any money in the local bank in a CD, would you refer them to me and I'll tell them about the insane rates of return that I'm paying my investors? Well, what do you think Wayne said? Wayne looked at me and he says, well, now, Brother Jay, what you got going on there? And I said, well, are you saying you might be interested? He said, well, I might be interested. I said, why is that? He says, well, we're losing money in the stock market, he and his wife. I'm only making 3%, that's what it was in 2009, in the local bank in a CD. He says, what kind of rates are you paying? I said, well, Wayne, that sort of depends on the deal. I said, what sounds high to you? He said, well, I'm getting 3% at the bank, losing money in the stock market. He said, I don't know, maybe 5 or 6%. I said, Wayne, I can't pay you 5 or 6%, but I can pay you 8%. He said, put me down for $250,000. And so the next day, on Thursday afternoon, I went to his and his wife's home, and I sat down, and I brought them and put on my teacher hat. I brought them the entire program as to what I do with my private lenders. How am I going to protect them? I don't borrow unsecured funds. They get a deed of trust. I name them on the insurance policy as the mortgagee to give them another layer of protection. And so I went over the program with them, and after 2 cups of coffee, Leo, that $250,000 became $500,000 that they wanted to invest. Because you see, a new private lender always has more than they tell you, right? As you very well know. And so they became my very first private lenders. I didn't bring up any deals, but then I called them up within a week with the good news phone call. And Leo, would you like for me to share the script of the good news phone call?
Absolutely. And before you go there, so it basically you set up the money on call until you find a deal?
Correct.
All right. Important part of the process. Okay. Let's
very important part of the process. That way I don't have to pitch, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, Leo, let's you and me do a little role play. Let's do a little role play. By the way, what kind of tea are you drinking this morning? I love hot tea.
That is it's a ginger matcha green tea
Hush!
with
I love,
with a squeeze of lemon.
I love ginger and jasmine green tea mixed together. That's my go-to. Anyway, I digress. So Leo, let me share the script of exactly what I say in the Good News phone call to a private lender when I've got a deal for them to fund. So Leo, let's do a couple of hypothetical assumptions. First of all, let's assume that you and I have been friends for a while. We've got the trust factor with each other. Let's say we go to church together for sake of, conversation. And let's also assume, Leo, that I've taught you my program. I've taught you what I pay, how you're protected, with no bill attached to it, and you like the program. Let's also assume, Leo, that you have a 401k retirement fund with a previous employer. You've left the employment. The 401k is still with that plan administrator of that previous employer. And let's say you got $150,000 sitting over there and you don't like how it's performing. Let's also assume that in my teaching to you of this opportunity, let's assume I have introduced you to a self-directed IRA company and a rep that I recommend. And let's also assume you've moved that $150,000 over to the self-directed IRA company. And I have promised you I will put your money to work for you just as soon as possible. So there's the setup. I call you up on the phone, and here's the script of the Good News phone call. I say, Leo, I've got great news for you. I can now put your money to work. I've got a house under contract in Newport, North Carolina, with an after-repaired value of $200,000. Now, the funding required for the deal matches up to what you've got, $150,000. Now, closing is going to be next Monday a week from Monday, and I'm going to need for you to wire your $150,000 to my real estate attorney's trust account. I'm going to have my attorney email you the wiring instructions, so you'll need to email those funds from your self-directed IRA account to my real estate attorney by a week from today, by next Friday. End of conversation. Now let's unpack that for a second. First of all, the most stupid question I could ask Leo is, does he want to fund the deal? Of course he wants to fund the deal for 3 reasons. Number 1, Leo trusted me to move his money to the self-directed IRA company that I introduced him to. Number 2 reason Leo wants to fund my deal is because Leo knows I'm not going to bring any deal for him to fund unless it matches the criteria of the program that I already taught him. He already knows the underwriting and the terms. Notice, funding was $150,000, 75% of the after-repaired value. The third reason Leo is ecstatic wanting to fund my deal in this hypothetical situation is because Leo's not making any money until I put his money to work. So to just unpack that, the stages are very, very important. Leo, as you pointed out, you've taught the program, they've got their money lined up ready to go, you promised them you'd bring them a deal just as soon as possible to put their money to work. You follow through, you call them with the Good News phone call for them to fund the deal, and they're ready to go. It's that simple.
And how did it go from there? Did they refer you folks? Like, tell me how you went from, you said 250 to 2 million.
Well, that's a good question. So with Wayne and his wife, that $250,000 by Thursday afternoon became $500,000, right? So where'd the other $2 million come from? I put on my very first private lender luncheon. What in the world's a private lender luncheon? Well, I got a whole chapter in the book on how to have a successful private lender luncheon. I invited 20 people in my own network, people I go to church with, people in my cell phone that I've known a while. I invited them to a luncheon to the Dunes Club, which is an oceanfront private club here in Atlantic Beach, North Carolina. And I invited them to lunch. I had my CPA there, my realtor there, my real estate attorney there. And I fed them lunch. And then I pulled up my little PowerPoint presentation, Leo, and I taught the program the same one that I talked to Wayne and his wife at their home. And I had a little interest form on the table, no deals attached to this. And from that one private lender luncheon, I raised $969,000 in pledges of people that wanted to invest. So right there, that accounted for $1.5 million. And then shortly thereafter, I'll try to make this short. I wanted to lose some weight, right? I've been wanting to lose weight all my life. So anyway, I was born and my mother put me on a diet. But anyway, I was wanting to lose some weight, and here in Morehead City, Leo, there was this pharmacy called the Medical Park Pharmacy, and they were having a little clinic on Monday night at 7:30. They were selling these female hormone drops, and you put them under your tongue every morning. It'll kill your appetite, and you lose 30 pounds in 30 days, and eat all the Cheetos you want. So sign me up, right? I'll buy anything. Well, while I was there at the pharmacy, Leo, I met this guy named Al. I had never met Al before in my life. Well, let me just tell you, Al needed more hormone drops than I did, if you know what I mean. He was Big Al. So we chatted a little bit after the little presentation, and here's exactly what I said to Al. I said, Al, I've got a 16-minute. Now, this is when we had CDs, back in the day when we had CDs. Now it's just an audio that you can text to people. I said, Al, I got a 16-minute CD in the car that I think you'll find interesting. It'll actually show you how to get higher returns on your money than you can probably get anywhere else. I went to the car, I got the CD, I handed it to him. It was an audio that I had recorded, 16 minutes long, called Stress-Free Investing, How to Print Money Automatically. And so it introduces this world of private money and what it is. It doesn't give any of the terms, but what is private money? So I gave it to Al, and I said, by the way, Al, this has got nothing to do with multi-level marketing. And I didn't tell him anything about real estate or private money or nothing. That was on Monday night. Thursday, Al called me up. He said, Jay, I've listened to this recording 3 times. When can we get together? And I said, well, whenever you want to. He said, well, I'm traveling. I'll be back in town on Monday. So he came here to my office, walked in the door. We walked into my conference room. And I said, by the way, Al, what in the world do you do? He said, multi-level marketing. I said, really? I said, so I learned very quickly, Leo, Al had a problem. He had over $1 million in his checking account, and he didn't know what to do with it, where to put it. He didn't want to put it in the local bank and make that kind of little bit of interest. And so I walked him through my little PowerPoint presentation, the same one I did at the private lender luncheon. Al became my next $650,000 private lender by me simply giving him an audio recording where I met him. And notice I didn't follow up with him. He's chasing me after he listened to this little 16-minute introductory. You see, that audio does not spill the beans. It doesn't tell the interest rate or the length of the note, but it piques curiosity. And the purpose of that 16-minute audio is to get a potential private lender's greed glands in their neck swelling up so they can't wait to hear the details of the program and the opportunity. So I did it one-on-one. I did it in a group at the private lender luncheon. And I just went about my daily life asking people, did you know questions? I love did you know questions. My favorite did you know question is, well, by the way, did you know there's a way people can earn unlimited money per year tax-free? Nobody's going to know the answer to that question. Of course, I'm talking about a Roth IRA in a self-directed IRA company. And so that just opens up conversations that allows you to teach people about self-directed IRAs and how they can earn money tax-free and tax-deferred.
So from there, what is your typical strategy? Is it buy and hold and then the BRRRR method where you refinance out, or is it to actually buy, fix, and flip? And how does that funnel work for you?
Well, as of recent, it doesn't make sense to do the BRRRR method because commercial rates have actually been higher than what I've been paying my private lenders at 8%. The BRRRR method does make sense when you can refinance and your commercial rate, of course, is less than what you've been paying your private lender. With private lenders, there's no points and et cetera, the way I do it. So for a long time, years ago, Leo, I would, when the market was slow in the early 2000s, I did a lot of deals where I'd buy it with private money, I'd rehab the house, turn it beautiful, I'd put it in the multiple listing service, and I would simultaneously market it to potential rent-to-own or lease purchase buyers. So whoever showed up first, that's who I sold it to. And I did that a lot while the market was slow. We actually cashed out 80% of our lease purchase buyers. We forced them into credit repair and forced them to get a mortgage to cash out because I didn't want to leave private money buried in there forever. But then since COVID came along, for goodness sakes, and the values of houses going sky high, I haven't sold many houses on lease purchase since COVID. I renovate them and I flip them because we in our area still have no inventory whatsoever in the multiple listing service. Case in point, I put a house on the market on Country Club Road here in Morehead City a couple of weeks ago. Leo, when I went active with my realtor on Friday, in 48 hours we had 20 showings. Can you imagine? 20 showings. I bought that house for $150,000. I put $50,000 worth of renovation in it. Total investment $200,000. Put it on the market with my realtor for $389,900, and I'm under contract right away for $415,000 with multiple offers. So with the market still being crazy as it is here in my local market, my exit strategy is I'm flipping most of them due to the lack of inventory in the MLS.
So you kind of turn on whatever strategy works based on the market. So you either hold them or flip them based on what's going on in the macro.
Absolutely. Adapt to the market. Adapt to the market. You know, one question I'll get, I've already lived through 4 cycles of real estate, right? And sometimes I'll get the question from people, they'll say, well, Jay, aren't you concerned about, the market going down, the real estate market going down, et cetera? And I say, I don't care what the market does. People are always going to need somewhere to live. They're always going to need housing. And if I need to sell a house on lease purchase or rent to own to adapt with the market, then that's fine. I can actually buy them upside down with them owing more money than they're worth, because if I sell on lease purchase, I'm going to collect a large non-refundable lease option deposit. The legal term is an option fee. And then as long as I can collect per month more than the underlying debt on that house, then, I'll sit on that house forever, because I know from experience, the longer you own a property, the more money you make.
And do your investors ever want to participate in a different function than just as a lender, or do they get curious about what it is you do to create those returns?
1 out of 47. Actually, 1 out of 48, because he passed away. And I'm not talking about Wayne. I'm talking about a different private lender. So this particular private lender that I'm speaking of, very smart, entrepreneur, owned his own business, a wealthy guy. And so he had been a private lender with me for maybe, 2 or 3 years at least. And he calls me up one day and he says, Jay, I've enjoyed, that past tense always sort of puts you on your heels, right? He says, I've enjoyed being a private lender and the rate of return you've been paying me. He says, but I really don't want to do that anymore. I want to participate in the deals and get a percentage of the profit in the back end. And I said, well, I don't blame you for asking, but that's not my business model. You see, too many cooks in the kitchen burns the toast. If you want to get a percentage of the profit and a part of the back end, then you know what? You need to do what I do. You need to go look for deals. You need to spend money on marketing. You need to negotiate deals. You need to oversee general contractors. Unless if you're tired of just sitting back collecting checks and doing nothing, if you want a percentage of the profit, then you need to be an operator.
And what would you say are the tips or the best strategies to source deals? Because I think that's the hardest part of the funnel that people
particularly today in today's market, it's challenging to find the deals. Obviously, they're not in the multiple listing service for the reason I just said. I put a beautiful home in the MLS. I got 20 showings in 48 hours. I haven't bought a house out of the multiple listing service in over 5 years, since before COVID. So where do we find these properties? Well, more than one place, and so I'll share with you right now. Number one is Google pay-per-lead. So I don't do Google pay-per-click, but Google pay-per-lead. I got 7 different vendors that supply me and my team and my acquisitionist. I've had my acquisitionist with me that talks to all my sellers for 20 years. Her name is Kim. And so we have 7 vendors that are providing us leads of off-market houses, people that do not have their houses in the multiple listing service, that are motivated to sell for whatever reason. Moving out of the area, somebody passed away, somebody lost a job, somebody got a divorce, etc. So Google pay-per-lead. Another large market is inherited houses, inherited properties. I'm thinking of a particular inherited property. Last year, in fact, a year ago next month, had a Google pay-per-lead come into my marketing funnel. It was an oceanfront condominium at Pine Knoll Shores, North Carolina, on the island right down from Atlantic Beach. And not only was it an inherited property, it was vacant. The son lived in South Carolina. And it's going to the foreclosure courthouse steps for sale in 2 weeks. Lots of layers of motivation. So long story short, I bought that house using private money, that condominium I should say, for $425,000. I put $11,000 worth of paint and touch-up in it, and I sold it very, very quickly for $615,000 right away. The point of that story is, if I hadn't had the Google pay-per-lead coming in, I would have missed out on that deal. A real estate investor would have bought it at the courthouse steps. And if I hadn't had private money to close in less than 7 days, that's a big thing right there. With private money, I close deals in 7 days or less when we need to. So Google pay-per-lead. We also direct mail inherited properties, heirs of inherited properties. In addition to that, Leo, since 2004, we've been mailing every person, family that's facing pre-foreclosure in our target market here locally. And we're taking advantage of nobody. We're again leading with a servant's heart. Most of these people will sell to us subject to the existing note without even needing private money. And we don't buy it for what they owe. We put $3,000 or $4,000 in their pocket to actually help them get back on their feet. So we direct mail people facing foreclosure. I have a full-time outbound caller and texter, and we are now using a list provided by one of the very first AI Driving for Dollars services. I met this guy in a mastermind that I'm a member of. So that's outbound calling and texting. And so we use all kinds of, networking. Networking is a big part of getting leads. Networking with realtors that have a house that needs repair, and they're really sort of hesitant of putting it in the multiple listing service. So having multiple relationships with multiple realtors also as well. There's more, but those are the main ones.
Well, that is fascinating how that journey started and where it's come. So where can people find you and your content? Why don't you share that as we wrap up?
Sure, Leo. The best and easiest way to find Jay Conner, by the way, I'm an ER, not an OR. So the best and easiest way is, let me give you my recent best-selling book, which is called Where to Get the Money Now. It's on Amazon for $20, but don't spend $20 on Amazon. The subtitle is How and Where to Get all the money for your real estate deals without relying on traditional lenders, i.e. the BB&Ts that you and I know about, Leo. And I'll autograph it. I will ship it 3-day express. I'll give it to you. Just covers shipping. You can pick up the book at www.jayconner.com/book. Again, that's Conner, JayConner.com/book. I'll rush it out to you. I'm also going to include 2 tickets to the Private Money Conference, in-person conference that I do 3 times a year. And in addition to that, come check me out on my podcast. I'm now in my 8th year of podcasting. The name of my podcast is Raising Private Money with Jay Conner. Very easy to find. It's on all the platforms.
Well, Jay, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your wisdom and your journey. I appreciate you.
Leo, thank you so much for having me join you. God bless you.
Are you feeling inspired by the knowledge you gained in this episode? Then head over to jconner.com/moneyguide. That's jconner.com/moneyguide and download your free guide that shares 7 reasons why private money will skyrocket your real estate investing business right now. Again, that's jconner.com/moneyguide to get your free guide. We'll see you next time on Raising Private Money with Jay Conner.